Imagine being surrounded by nothing but the infinite blue, a horizon that never changes, assailants broken only by the crash of waves, and skies that shift between dazzling beauty and terrifying fury. For most of us, the ocean is a place of wonder and escape. But for two people, it became a prison. Their survival wasn't guaranteed, and every moment brought a new challenge, dictated by the raw, unrelenting power of nature. Their journey began like so many others, routine trip, a moment of adventure. But when disaster struck, the vastness of the sea swallowed them whole. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, the rhythm of their lives became intertwined with the unpredictable heartbeat of the ocean. They faced storms that tore apart the skies, scorching sun that drained their strength, and nights so dark it felt like the universe itself had disappeared. Yet, through it all, they endured. They learned to adapt, to find hope in the smallest details, a sudden rain shower, a school of fish, or even the quiet moments of stillness. This is the story of two people who were forced to confront the ultimate question. How far can the human spirit go when nature holds all the cards? Today, we explore their extraordinary year lost at sea. Welcome to Risky Reality, where risks meet reality. Before we continue this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. The goal for February is to reach 100 subscribers. It would also mean a lot if you could like this video. For now, thank you for watching, and let's continue this adventure. The Pacific Ocean, with its boundless expanse, offers both beauty and danger. Along the southern coast of Mexico, the sea meets the land in a tranquil embrace, the waves gently lapping against the shore. Fishing villages have thrived for centuries here, with generations of fishermen navigating its waters. The ocean provides both sustenance and livelihood, but it also demands respect, for it can be unforgiving and unpredictable. On the edge of the Pacific, small boats venture out every day, hoping to return with a bounty of fish that will feed families and communities. José Salvador Alvarenga had been born into this life. His village, nestled along the coast off southern Mexico, was a tight-knit community where fishing was not just a means of survival but also a tradition passed down through generations. From a young age, Alvarenga had learned to read the ocean. He knew when the winds would shift, when the currents would turn, and when a storm might appear on the horizon. By November 2012, he had grown into a seasoned fisherman, trusted by the people in his village for his skill, reliability, and deep understanding of the sea. That November, Alvarenga set out with his colleague and fellow fisherman, Ezequiel, for what was supposed to be a simple trip. They climbed aboard their 7-meter fiberglass boat, a vessel designed for coastal fishing. Though small, it was sturdy enough for the waters near their village. The two men were familiar with the risks of the ocean, but they had ventured out together countless times without incident. They had no reason to believe that this trip would be any different. The morning sky was clouded but not threatening, and the sea was calm enough for them to drop their lines and begin fishing. Alvarenga and Ezequiel worked in synchrony, their hands moving with practiced ease as they cast nets and checked their lines. The rhythmic motions of fishing were comforting, a reprieve from the stress of daily life. Yet, as the day wore on, a subtle unease began to settle in. The wind, which had been a light breeze at the start of the day, began to pick up, rustling the leaves of nearby trees in the distance. By midday, the winds had become stronger, whipping the surface of the ocean into swells. Alvarenga was no stranger to such changes in the weather, but this time, the winds seemed fiercer than usual. He could feel the boat rocking more than it should, and when he checked the engine, it sputtered, stalling before it finally gave out altogether. This was not entirely unexpected. Engines on small boats could fail, and Alvarenga had the skills to troubleshoot and repair. However, as he tried to restart the motor, it became clear that the boat's engine was beyond repair. Panic started to set in. They were now adrift, at the mercy of the ocean, with no way of returning to shore. The currents were pulling them farther away from land, and the storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The two men tried to use their oars to navigate back to the coast, but it was a futile effort. The wind had picked up, and the ocean's currents were relentless. As hours turned into a full day, the men's situation worsened. The boat was being pushed farther from shore, and with no communication equipment to call for help, they were completely isolated. Alvarenga tried to keep his companion calm, but as night fell, the unease that had been growing in his chest turned into full-blown fear. The ocean, once familiar, now felt vast and menacing. The two men had no food or water left, and the fear of the unknown gnawed at their hearts. For the next few days, they drifted, with nothing but their determination to survive keeping them going. They had no way of knowing where they were or how far the shore was. The supplies they had taken with them quickly ran out. Desperation set in, but Alvarenga was determined to hold in. His survival instincts kicked in, and he began to fish for whatever he could catch using only his hands. Fish, seabirds, anything he could find to stave off the hunger. Yet, despite his efforts, it wasn't enough. The days passed without much progress, and the physical toll began to take its toll on them both. By the time the first week had passed, they were both weakened by hunger and dehydration. Alvarenga watched helplessly as his friend, Ezekiel, began to weaken. The toll of the storm, combined with the lack of food and water, left Ezekiel unable to keep up. His body grew frail, his face pale and gaunt. Alvarenga did his best to care for him, rationing what little water and food they had left. But it was clear that Ezekiel's condition was deteriorating rapidly. The loneliness was overwhelming. They had no way to measure time, but it felt like an eternity. The endless expanse of water around them seemed to stretch on forever. Every day was a fight for survival. Alvarenga, who had always been the more resilient of the two, began to lose hope. He wondered if he would ever see land again. The thought of dying at sea was terrifying, yet there were moments when the weight of hunger, thirst, and despair seemed unbearable. "I thought about giving up," Alvarenga would later reflect. "I thought about ending it all, but the fear of what might happen stopped me. I just couldn't bring myself to give in." Despite the crushing despair, something inside Alvarenga refused to let go. The promise of survival, the stubborn hope that somehow he would escape this nightmare, kept him going. Head hot to himself over and over, "I will get out. I will survive." The weeks blurred together, and Alvarenga's body grew weaker and weaker. His skin, burned by the sun, became cracked and blistered, and his hands were raw from fishing with little more. Then his bare hands. His stomach, once full and strong from years of hard work on the ocean, was now a hollow, painful reminder of the toll the ordeal had taken. But despite all of this, Alvarenga kept going. The thought of his family, of the life he had once known, pushed him to hold on. Then, one fateful day, Alvarenga saw something that made his heart race. In the distance, he spotted a tiny speck on the horizon. At first, he thought it was a trick of the mind, a mirage caused by the dehydration, but as he squinted and focused, he realized it was land. His heart leaped. It was no guarantee, but it was a sign of hope. Alvarenga steered the boat toward the land, using the last of his strength to row against the growing swell of the waves. His body was barely functioning. Every muscle ached, his bones felt as if they might snap, but the thought of land, of survival, kept him moving. The closer he got, the more he could make out the outline of an island. It was small, isolated, and uninhabited, but it was land. He could feel the weight of months of desperation lift from his shoulders as he fought to reach it. Hours passed before Alvarenga's boat finally scraped against the reef of Ebon Atoll, a remote island in the Marshall Islands. He collapsed onto the beach, his body completely exhausted. His face was gaunt and hollow, his hair matted, and his clothes, now little more than tattered remnants, clung to his fragile body. He could barely stand. The islanders who lived on Ebon Atoll had never seen anyone in such a state. Alvarenga's physical condition was a shock to them, but they quickly realized he was a castaway, a man who had somehow survived the impossible. The villagers rushed to his side, offering him food, water, and shelter. At first, Alvarenga could hardly comprehend what was happening. After more than a year adrift, he had found land. The relief he felt was overwhelming, and for the first time in months, he allowed himself to rest. The villagers, astonished by his story, contacted the local authorities, and Alvarenga was soon taken to a nearby island for medical attention. The doctors who treated Alvarenga were astounded by his survival. He had lost nearly half of his body weight and was severely malnourished, but his spirit had not been broken. Though the physical recovery would take time, his mental resilience had been unwavering. As news of his ordeal spread, people around the world marveled at his strength. How had he survived alone in the vast Pacific for over a year? Eventually, Alvarenga was repatriated to Mexico. His return was celebrated by his community, but he carried with him the scars of his experience, both physical and emotional. His companion, Ezequiel, was gone, lost to the ocean, and Alvarenga would never forget the bond they shared during their time at sea. Looking back, Alvarenga's survival was nothing short of miraculous. He had been lost in the vastness of the Pacific, but he had never given up. As he returned to his life, the words that had kept him going reverberated in his mind. I will survive. I will get out. I will live. The experience had changed him in ways he couldn't fully understand, but it had also shown him the strength of the human spirit, the will to survive even in the face of the most unimaginable odds. Alvarenga's story became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the unyielding power of hope. And though his body would heal, the lessons learned during his time adrift would stay with him forever. José Salvador Alvarenga's incredible survival story serves as both a testament to the strength of the human spirit and a reminder of the unforgiving nature of the ocean. After more than a year adrift at sea, he found himself on the shores of Eben Atoll, a place that seemed like a distant dream after months of despair. His body had been pushed to its limits, yet his will to survive had never wavered. He was a living testament to what can be endured when hope, however fragile, keeps a person moving forward. Alvarenga's survival was not the result of sheer luck, but a combination of learned skills, deep resilience, and the constant drive to never give up. For those who find themselves in perilous situations, there are valuable lessons to be learned from his ordeal, lessons that could make all the difference when facing the harsh realities of nature. One of the most crucial survival tips that Alvarenga's journey highlights is the importance of maintaining hope. In the darkest moments, when the world seems impossible to navigate, it's easy to succumb to despair. But Alvarenga's belief that he would get out, his repeated mantra of, I will survive, kept him focused on the possibility of escape, even when there wasn't a guarantee. Mental fortitude is just as important as physical strength in survival situations. When the body is weak, the mind must remain strong. Another vital lesson is the need to preserve and ration resources carefully. Alvarenga's access to food and water was limited, and without these basic essentials, his chances of survival would have been slim. But he relied on his knowledge of the sea, using his bare hands to catch fish, seabirds, and turtles. In situations of limited food, prioritizing hydration is crucial. He was fortunate enough to collect rainwater, and it became one of his most vital resources. If ever in a survival scenario, ensure to always conserve energy and ration food and water to the utmost, using every opportunity to source additional supplies. Additionally, understanding the power of the environment, in this case, the ocean, was essential. Alvarenga understood the weather patterns and currents of the Pacific, which allowed him to navigate when he could. He adapted to the conditions, using the storm to his advantage when he could, and relying on his knowledge to survive. In survival scenarios, understanding one's environment, be it through weather, natural signs, or geography, can provide a significant edge in staying alive. When stranded at sea, ending shelter and protection from the elements becomes critical. Alvarenga did not have access to shelter as he floated for months, but he used his experience to mitigate exposure to the sun and rain, staying shaded when possible and using rainwater to drink. Although he did not have the luxury of a shelter, The ability to protect oneself from the elements can be the difference between life and death. Staying calm and focused is perhaps the most important piece of advice. Alvarenga's ability to keep a clear mind, despite his isolation and the overwhelming obstacles, helped him make crucial decisions. The urge to panic is natural when facing dire circumstances, but taking deep breaths, assessing the situation, and calmly thinking through options are essential to survival. Panic wastes energy, while calm thinking helps in problem solving, whether it's finding food or attempting to navigate toward land. Finally, Alvarenga's story teaches us the power of companionship and shared experience in tough times. While his friend Ezekiel tragically succumbed to the ocean's cruelty, their bond was one of mutual support and strength. In survival situations, having a partner or group can be invaluable for both physical and emotional support, but when alone, having a purpose, like the drive to survive for loved ones, can keep you going. As Alvarenga was eventually rescued and brought back to Mexico, his tale of survival reverberated around the world. People marveled at how he had endured such unimaginable hardship, yet it was clear that his journey was not just about physical survival. It was about perseverance, adaptability, and the refusal to give up. Every moment spent on the open ocean had tested his limits, but in the end, it proved that with resilience and resourcefulness, survival is possible even in the most hopeless of circumstances. Alvarenga's ordeal didn't end when he reached the shores of the Marshall Islands. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Though his body healed over time, the lessons he learned during his year at sea would stay with him forever. And for the rest of us, his story serves as an enduring reminder. Never lose hope, never stop fighting for survival, and always believe that no matter how difficult the journey, you have the strength to make it through.